Hi everyone, welcome to today's 40-minute maths, where we are going to be doing some multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. But before we do that, we've got a starter. So some different questions are going to come up at the screen, and you've got to shout out the answer before the answers come up. And there's going to be some music in the background. Now the music, you'll probably notice, is going to get faster and faster, and as that happens, the answers to the questions are going to come up quicker and quicker. So you've got to make sure you're super fast getting towards the end in order to get your answer before they come up on the screen.
When you're running out of time and there's empty sky below, where'd you go? Please, does anyone know? When you're running out of time and the field begins to grow, where'd you go? Please, does anyone know? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Please, does anyone know? When you've laid down all your races and there's nothing left to show, where'd you go? Please, does anyone know? When you can't shut out the voices and your head's about to blow, where'd you go? Please, does anyone know? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Please, does anyone know?
Okay, so today's learning intention is to convert mixed numbers into improper fractions and vice versa, and to multiply fractions and mixed numbers. And of course, as always, there is the best in the business bonus questions where they get super tricky at the end. Okay, so before we get on converting between improper fractions and mixed numbers, I just want to do a recap on what an improper fraction or a mixed number is. So we know that a fraction is part of something, so it's less than one whole. But when we have more than one whole, we have to have what we call an improper fraction, where the numerator, the number at the top, is bigger than the denominator at the bottom, or a whole number with a fraction, which is a mixed number. So you can see here we've got 1 3/4, which is what you call a mixed number, because there's 1 whole and 3/4. But that is also the same as, if we were to count them, 7 quarters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can turn that into 7 quarters, which is 7/4. So it's exactly the same thing, 1 3/4 and 7 quarters. Now, if there wasn't the physical representation there, you can do 1 times 4, which is 4, and then add the 3, and 7 would go at the top, and the bottom would just stay the same because it's 7 quarters. If you wanted to turn the 7 quarters back into 1 3/4, you'd do 7 divided by 4, which is 1, 4 goes into 7 once, and 3 left over, which is 3 quarters. So we've got some improper fractions here now. So if you want to pause and have a go at turning these into the other one, then go for it. If not, I'm going to go for it now. So let's have a look at this first one. 1 times 4 is 4. Add the 1 makes 5 quarters. Number 2. 2 times 9 is 18. Add the 2 is 20/9. Next one. 1 times 9 is 9. Add the 5 is 14. So that's 14/9. This one, this improper fraction here, 3 goes into 5 once, and then there's 2 left over, so it's 1 2/3. If you notice when I do my mixed numbers, I always make sure that this number here is right in between the line, because if you put it higher, it could look like a 12. It could look like an improper fraction of 12/3. So make sure that goes right in between. 5 goes into 19 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15, and you've got 4 left over, so that's 3 4/5. And last one, dodgy 5 there. 8 goes into 33, or 8 times 4 is 32. That's 4, and then we've got 1/8 left over. So multiplying fractions is actually the easiest of the 4 operations in terms of using fractions. So super pips. Well, first of all, just have a think about it. When you multiply by a number less than 1, your amount will get smaller. So my amount should be smaller than 2 quarters that I end up with. Easy peasy to multiply fractions. All you got to do is multiply the top, the numerator, and then multiply the bottom. So 2 times 3 makes 6. You can shut the screen if you want when I call out these number sentences. And 4 times 5 makes 20, which would be 26. And if you wanted to simplify that down, you could divide them both by 2 and make that 3/10. Next one, so dividing fractions. So as I said before, when you multiply by a number less than 1, the amount should get smaller. But if you divide by a number less than 1, the amount should get bigger. So hopefully we should end up with an amount bigger than 2 quarters. 2 quarters, of course, is the same as a half. Now, I've mentioned before, there's a really good video on YouTube, which has got like a rap, which says keep, change, flip. So what you have to do is the 2 quarters here, you keep that. That stays exactly the same. You change the divide to a multiply, and you flip the 3/5 to make 5/3. And then you do exactly the same as what you did before for the multiplying fractions. 2 times 5 makes 10. 4 times 3 makes 12. And like I said, you're going to end up with an amount bigger than you did at the start, bigger than 2 quarters, because you're dividing by a number less than 1. So 2 quarters divided by 3/5 makes 10/12. Now what you sometimes get is questions like this: 3 quarters times 5. So what you need to do in this situation is turn that number 5 into a fraction. Well, that's 5 wholes, isn't it? So that would be, as a fraction, 5/1. So I would just turn it into 5/1. It doesn't matter that that sits a little bit lower than the line. And then you can do exactly the same thing. 3 times 5 makes 15. 4 times 1 makes 4. So 3/4 times 5 equals 15 quarters. You could also turn that back into a mixed number. 4 goes into 15 3 times, so that'd be 3 and 3/4 left over. Okay, so dividing fractions by a whole number. All you have to do is you turn that 3 into a fraction, which, if you can remember, 3 is a fraction, is 3/1. Then you do exactly the same thing. Keep, change, flip. 3/7 times, changing that to times, 1/3 equals 3 times 1 makes 3. 7 times 3 makes 21. You may have noticed you could simplify that down to make 1/7. Okay, so when you're multiplying mixed numbers, you have to do exactly the same thing, but you just turn your mixed numbers into improper fractions. So let's turn this 2 and 1/7, let's turn that into an improper fraction. So 2 times 7 makes 14, add the 1 makes 15. Over 7 and multiplied by 3 times 5 makes 15, add the 4 makes 19 over 5. Now you might get this situation here where these two numbers, you need a bit of a method for multiplying. So I would do a column multiplication. Let's do that under here. 15 times 19. Okay, so 9 times 5 is 45. Now, put the 5 there. Now, I always put my 4 just under there. I know people put them in different places, and that's absolutely fine. You can put it wherever you like. And 9 times 1 is 9. Add the 4, makes 13. Then we need our 0, because we are multiplying by a multiple of 10. And 1 times 5 is 5. Ooh, slightly dodgy 5 there. And 1 times 1 is 1. Add them both together would make 5. So that would make 285. Over 35. Now you could definitely simplify this down and turn it back into a mixed number. I'm not going to do it at the moment, but that is something that you could do. Okay, so same thing for divided mixed numbers. We're going to turn our 2 2/3 into an improper fraction. So 2 times 3 is 6, and add the 2 makes 8/3. Divided by 1 times 5 is 5, add the 4 makes 9, divided by 9/5. Then we're going to do our keep, change, flip. So 8/3 stays the same. Change the divide to a multiply and flip the 9/5. Make 5/9. Just going to join that up there. 8 times 5 makes 40. And 3 times 9 makes 27. So the answer would be 40/27, or you could change that to 1 and 13/27. Okay, so here's your first lot of questions. You can answer as a fraction or an improper fraction, or if you really want to stretch yourself, you can convert it back to a mixed number and simplify it to its lowest form. So press pause now to have a go at these. And here's the answers. So if you have a look at number 1, you could have simplified that down to 10/21. Number 2 looks like you could divide both 21 and 45 by 3. So that could be 7/15. Number 3, those numbers could definitely be divided by 3 as well. So you could have simplified that down to 11/32. And if you look at 4, 5 and 6, it's got the answer as an improper fraction. Then it's got it as a mixed number in its simplest form. Okay, so here's the dividing by fractions, whole numbers and mixed numbers questions. So again, you can answer just as a fraction or a mixed number, or you can answer as a mixed number and simplify right down to its lowest form. So press pause now if you want to crack these on your own. If not, I'm going to go on to the answers. So here we go. Number 1, I don't believe can be simplified, nor can number 2. Number 3, 24 and 84, both in the 12 times table, so that could be simplified down to 2/7. And 4, 5 and 6, it's got the answers as improper fractions and as mixed numbers simplified down. So it's now time for your best in the business bonus questions. If you want to have a stab at these, press pause now. Okay, so number 1 says, what fraction is exactly halfway between 3/5 and 5/7? So if you found equivalent fractions, you should have worked out you can turn both of these into 30/5. So 3/5 is the same as 21/35, and 5/7 is the same as 25/35. So halfway between 21/35 and 25/35 is 23/35. Number 2. Which of these fractions is closest in value to a third? Well, hopefully you've worked out, because this is the highest number, 50 over 151, that would be closest to a third. And last question, Lily and Julian each start with the same number. Lily works out half the number. Julian works out 3/4 of the number. The sum of their answers, if you added their answers together, is 275. What was the number they started with? Well, if you added together a half and 3/4, you would get 5/4 or 1 1/4, whatever way you want to put it. And we're looking for what 1 whole is. Okay, so if 5/4 is the same as 275, if we worked out what 1/4 would be by dividing it by 5, 1/4 would be 55. And then if we multiply that by 4 to make 4/4, because 4/4 is 1 whole, the answer would be 220. Now, if you find some of these best in the business bonus questions a bit tricky and you can't get them, don't worry, it's not to panic. They are really, really hard, some of them. If you did manage to get them, then that's absolutely brilliant too. Okay, so I hope everyone got on with everything okay today. Thanks again to all the people who make the comments, the likes, the subscribers. Really appreciate it. My next video will come up tomorrow afternoon or evening, which is Thursday evening, which will be your last one before the Easter holidays. Going to give you a bit of a break over Easter. So until then, stay safe and be good for your parents.